Hello, and welcome to this next session for the CKA exam, continuing on node upgrades and maintenance and availability. So what we're doing now is in the part A, what we looked at was we went to our nodes here and we made a node unavailable. So you could just pretend the scenario of um, you have multiple nodes. Somebody needs to upgrade one of those nodes. You need to make it unavailable for scheduling for traffic, basically, from the pods. Um, and then you're basically going to upgrade that node, and then you're basically going to bring it back into service when it's verified as good. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to go on to this next question regarding node upgrades, and this is where we would actually upgrade a node. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my option 2 here for GCP cluster. I explained in the previous video about, you have multiple options here that's available to you. I'm just going to pick this one because I know that the actual networking and everything works for the GCP cluster. It was also created using kubeadmin. So therefore, if you'd like to sort of see how I did that, you can go back to my series 1 here into the introduction. And remember, this series 1 is all about, setting up the actual environment that's required for your CKA study. And even if it's not your CKA exam that you're going to practice for, it's definitely helpful notes. But if you go into the kubeadmin here, that's how I actually stood up this Kubernetes cluster here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my series 2 here. I'm going to go back to my upgrades, and I'm going to go back into my question here for node upgrades. So the first thing I want to do is I want to verify which version I could actually upgrade a node to. So before I would touch anything, I would make sure that I understand which version I can actually upgrade to. So what I've done is I've SSH'd into my node here, into my controller node, and I only have one node. So in this cluster, I only have one node. This is not a real life scenario. In a real life scenario, you would have multiple controllers, but for this simple demo, I have one controller, and basically I can sort of see that I've got two versions available. So I've got two patch versions. I've got the original, and then I've got one patch version that's come after that. So what I can do now is I can say kubectl get nodes, and I can see that I'm actually running on version 1.26. That's the version that I'm actually running on right now. And if I do k get pods, I can sort of see that I actually have that fake deployment up and running. So everything's up and running right now, and you can sort of see it's the containers are one of one, and the status is running for my deployment. Now I can also sort of see if I do -o wide, I can also sort of see that they're all actually running on the controller. And again, this is just a demo, of how this would work in theory in a larger infrastructure. But for right now, I mean, it's simply about just practicing the commands. So I've kind of run those two. I know what version I actually have, and you can sort of see this is slightly different. This is the kubectl version that basically says it's available, but technically these really will match up the kubeadmin to the kubectl will actually match up to the version. So we know that we have a version available. So the first thing what I want to do is I want to drain my controller. Again, I would not do this if I only had one, but basically I'm going to drain my controller, and I'm going to wait for everything to be evicted off of that controller. So there is a way, and there is a way to basically sort of say, only evict, you know, um, for example, pods that basically have, this label. Um, but I'm not going to worry about that kind of too much now because again, I'm just practicing the commands here. So I've kind of got, two different ways of kind of doing this. I see some people kind of, to do it the kind of quicker way, and then you can do it the kind of documentation way from Kubernetes. And I'm just going to continue with the documentation way. Um, I make sure that I kind of follow that. So what I'm going to do is first of all is I'm going to actually sudo into my pod. So I'm actually on my root now. I'm in as root onto my pod, and I'm going to take the command there that was just shown a second ago. So we're going to take this, um, unhold kube admin, and we're going to actually install that patch version for kubeadmin. And then we're going to mark it back on hold so that nothing can interfere or upgrade manually. So I'm just going to sort of say, um, actually, I'm going to just clear that for a second, and I'm just going to put it into Notepad and just copy it back in. So here's our patch version here. And again, I'm doing this quite quickly, because, we're going to start getting faster and faster onto these commands now. But you can sort of see that, Kubernetes is already at the latest, and that's basically because I had actually already upgraded this when I was trying this out for this video. But basically, if it wasn't upgraded, it will basically sort of say it's installing all the patches, it's installing all the updates, and now it is actually updated. So now that it's actually updated, I can sort of say, okay, so what's my kubeadmin version? So I want to sort of see what's my kubeadmin version. I can see my kubeadmin version um, is, it's a minor 26, but it's a major, so it's 1.26, and that's the actual Git version of what's actually in the GitHub repository for Kubernetes. So the next thing I would actually want to do here is I want to verify the actual upgrade plan. So I basically sort of say, what are you going to upgrade for me? So this here is just checking your actual your upgrade and your configuration is correct, and it's running health checks on your cluster. So all of this here um, is required of part of this documentation. So just make sure that you read through all of this documentation, understand um, what it actually is, and what it's referring to here. So the next thing I want to do is when that is actually completed, so you can sort of see, you can see here, this is great, right? I love Kubernetes for this, and I love, you know, the way it represents and presents the actual um, data to you back. This is kind of like a little report that basically says, okay, so what components that must be upgraded manually after that is the kubelet. Okay, we can do that. Upgrade to the latest version of the 1.26, so you can sort of see that's where they would be moved to, and you can sort of see ECD. It would have no actual impact for this upgrade. And then this says, and now you can actually apply the upgrade. So it's figured out internally here to Kubernetes, what versions will be upgraded, what components will be upgraded, um, and it's given me this nice representation that says, say, now you can actually apply that upgrade, if you really want to. And if I didn't want to, I would cancel the upgrade. But really what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to upgrade my cluster, because again, um, it's really just for kind of practice here. So I'm going to find my command here, and I'm in as root, making sure that I'm actually in as root. So I have the correct permissions to upgrade my kind of cluster. So this time I'm actually applying the upgrade. And, while that's actually happening here, what I'd recommend is, you can go to this link that I kind of put here, and it kind of shows you how to upgrade between, you know, um, the different versions. If you were on 2.1 and you want to go to 2.2, how to do that, and vice versa. And it's just really kind of nicely laid out. And this is what you will basically follow for the exam. So the notes that I have here is basically following that pattern. So that just makes life easy, because then you kind of know in the exam, you know where your notes um, will be for your actual upgrade. So I'm going to just move that down a little bit. So it says, are you sure you want to upgrade? Yes, I do. So basically, kubeadmin version is going to go to 1.26.1. And this is going to take a few moments, right? So, let's see how kind of um, this performs, and I will pause the video here and come back when it's available. Okay, so that has been a success now. So it says your cluster was upgraded to this version. Please enjoy. That honestly took me about 3 minutes. That's how quick that was on GCP here. So that was really, really quick. And I know I kind of have only, one controller node to upgrade. But the point is, you should be also kind of looking back at the actual logs here to sort of see, what actually happened. Take your time, read through them. It just kind of helps your own understanding and learning of the actual Kubernetes um, architecture and framework. So what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to run that next command that basically says, as I was kind of told previously, make sure that you're going to upgrade the kubelet and the kubectl. So I'm obviously going to follow their advice, and I'm going to take that command here, and I'm going to come back in here, and I'm just going to clear the screen a little bit just to give it a little bit more real estate here, and I'm going to run that, and let's see if this happens quite quickly. And again, this is the point of having, your safe environments for learning, because I know right now, I mean, there's obviously a fake deployment running on my controller, but I'm not going to be breaking anything that would be of any importance, right? So that's happened, and it's done it really, really quickly. The only thing here, the notes also sort of say, which is the same as the documentation, also sort of says, just make sure that you kind of, restart your kubelet. So I've kind of done that, and you could probably kind of you could probably check the actual, even though it's not in the notes, you could probably check the status of the kubelet, and you can actually see that the kubelet is actually running and in active mode. And if you need to find out what a kubelet is, go back to the video about the introduction of the components running in Kubernetes. Okay, so the final thing that I want to do here is actually uncordon my controller. So I want to uncordon my controller. Now, the first thing I just want to do is I want to just exit that for 1 second, because my upgrade has actually been complete. And I'm just curious to sort of see if I do get pods, because we know we had a deployment. Now, this is kind of this is just something for kind of our own knowledge here, but you can basically sort of see that you've got your kubectl get pods, and you can see that your deployment is pending on this controller node. And the reason it's pending is because it's actually been marked by Kubernetes. When I started this upgrade, it was actually marked by Kubernetes to sort of say, it's actually it's been scheduled for upgrade. So, there should be no traffic going over um, to this control plane controller anymore. And because there's only one node inside of the cluster, it's a control plane and it's an actual worker node. So how do we get that now to kind of get back to my original where my deployment was back working? And how we do that is basically we say we uncordon the controller. So basically now what we sort of said is, and same as we saw in part A, we uncordon the controller, and now we should see there's a difference here, because now you can see that the actual controller is actually ready again. The status is ready to take traffic, but you can also see that the actual version has been upgraded to .1. So that's really positive. And if we kind of just go in and we just make sure on our pods as well, and you can also see now that your actual pods are actually running. And I mean, you can also sort of, when you're upgrading these, you can make sure you use their labels, make sure, you start to improve using, namespaces and all these types of capabilities that Kubernetes provides, so that you can kind of, take a deployment or take a namespace and upgrade it safely